How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another devlog for Deli Island, the relaxing cooking game I've been developing in Unity. In the last video, I asked you all how I can make the map for the game, this little island, look more natural and less square, and you all came through with some really good ideas. What most of the comments had in common though, was that I should implement a little thing called Perlin Noise. Now I've never used Perlin Noise before, and I'd put off learning it for quite a while now, mostly because it felt like quite an intimidating subject to tackle. You always see Perlin Noise used in videos about random world generation or infinite world generation, and I thought it would be too difficult of a feature to add to my game. But after seeing the comments you all left, it seemed like I had no other choice but to learn about it and implement it into my game. So the first thing I did was look up a couple of YouTube tutorials on the subject, and after searching for a little while, I came across a brilliant series of videos by Sebastian Larg. After watching the videos and finally understanding what Perlin Noise was all about, I realised there was actually no reason to be intimidated by it in the first place. It feels a little bit embarrassing admitting that such a simple system intimidated me so much, but I prefer to show you what the reality of game development can sometimes be like. No one knows everything, and sometimes you have to take a step back and learn something new, no matter how simple that something may be. But that's half the fun of being a game developer. You're constantly learning new things. Anyway, back to the world generation. I'm going to give you all a quick rundown of what Perlin Noise is, but if you want a more in-depth explanation on the subject, I highly recommend checking out Sebastian Larg's video series on it. He explains it far better than I ever could. But essentially, Perlin Noise is just like a normal noise map, but with smooth transitions between the bright and dark pixels. Each pixel contains a value between 0 and 1, which represents the height of that pixel, 0 being the lowest and 1 being the highest. With these values and the smooth transitions between them, we can now create a more natural looking noise map. Let's change the colours of the pixels to better represent this. So let's say all pixels with a value of 0.15 and below are water tiles. Then let's say all pixels with a value between 0.15 and 0.3 are sand tiles. And finally, all other pixels are land tiles. Perfect. We can now see we've got a map with smooth transitions. But this is just a representation of the map. To actually spawn the rooms in, we have to apply the same principles, but in the world generation script. But this is really easy to do. We do exactly the same thing we did with the colour map. We first check the value of the pixel, but now, instead of changing the colour, we simply spawn the room associated with that value. Perfect. We now have a randomly generated map correctly spawning in. But there's obviously a problem. This clearly isn't an island. To create the island, we first have to create a fall-off map. A fall-off map is just a circular gradient that looks like this. We then subtract the fall-off map from the Perlin Noise map. This makes the edges of the Perlin Noise map empty and slowly transitions to land as we move inside. Great! With that done, let's see what the map looks like. Lovely! Now we have an actual island spawning in. The great thing about Perlin Noise is that we can change some of the parameters we have to get the island to look just how we want it to. We can play around with the scale, octaves, lacunarity and persistence to determine how close we want the sample to be, and how many small details are present in that sample. I've already played around with them a bit and found that these parameters give the best results for now. I've not yet mentioned the most important parameter that we have though. That would be the seed. The seed is a random number that gets input into the script and returns a random sample of Perlin Noise with which to build the island. This is what gives us the ability to create what is essentially an infinite amount of islands, because no seed will be quite like the other. It also gives us the ability to put the same seed in and always get the same map back, allowing players to replay on any specific map that they liked. Let's take a look at some of the random islands we can get. We can also change the regions of the map to make a specific type of island. Let's say we make the forest less likely to spawn, and we get a desert island. We can do it the other way around, and get a lush forest island. We can also make water more abundant, and we have a tiny island. There are tons of possibilities, and they all add up to make sure that every island can be as unique as possible. This is a feature I plan on letting the player control when they create a world, so they can personalise their island and even set themselves their own challenges if they wanted to. Since the island is looking a little bit empty, and I wanted to take a break from programming for a little bit, I decided it would be a good time to add some new assets to the world. So I went ahead and made a palm tree for the beach rooms. some rocks that can be spawned all over the island, as well as some ground details for the beach so it doesn't look so flat. I then created some animated wave tiles to make the island feel more alive, and recently I also updated the pine tree as well. I then created a few rooms with these new assets, and added them to the world generator script. So let's take a look and see what some of these islands look like now. Great, the islands are definitely looking a lot more alive now. I do think they still look a little bit flat though. In the future I plan on adding some mountain rooms as well to add a bit more verticality to the islands. And I also want to add dark sea tiles as well to really emphasise the difference in height under the water. But I think we've finished just about everything to do with the world generation system. We can tweak the parameters here and there and add more rooms obviously, but all that can be done later in the content creation phase of the project. Right now we just want to get all the base systems working and functioning correctly. So with the world generation system finished, we can now move on to one of the main systems in the game. The cooking system. We already have a very simple cooking system implemented, but it's very bare bones at the moment and not very fun to play with. So that's what we'll be working on in the next video, making the cooking system a lot more interactive and fun to play with. Being this is going to be the main mechanic of the game, it's really important that we get this right. I already have a couple of ideas in mind, but if you guys have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. But that's just about it for this video. I wanted to take a moment to quickly thank everyone who commented on the last video. It really helps me out and I appreciate it a ton. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.